Juan Diego was let out into the courtyard and through the gate. He had failed. It had never occurred to him that the lady's request would not be granted. Juan was tired and sad when he climbed back up the hill to tell the lady of his failure. The lady was waiting in the same spot. "Oh, beautiful lady," Juan Diego sobbed, "I have failed." He told her of his visit. "I'm sure the bishop did not believe me." Juan continued, "But he did tell me to return in a few days, and he did say he would think seriously about it." Juan kept apologizing for his failure, saying that perhaps if the lady sent a child or a noble person, not a poor farmer. He bowed his head in silence and listened. "My beloved son," the lady said, "I have many messengers I could send, but it is you I need and want for this purpose. I beg you to do it for my sake. Go home now to your village, but tomorrow go back to the bishop and tell him that I demand he build a church here in this very place." Juan Diego realized he must do as the lady asked. "I will do it," Juan said. "Please wait for me here tomorrow at the setting of the sun. I know I will bring you good news from the bishop. I leave you in peace now, lady. God keep you." The next morning, it was Sunday, the 10th of December. Juan was up before breakfast. This time, he reached the church of Santiago, and after the services, instead of talking with his friends, he set off once more for the bishop's house. Again, he knocked at the gate. Again, the doorkeeper let him into the courtyard, and again he waited and waited to see the bishop. This time, however, he was led to the bishop's private study. Almost as soon as Juan entered the room, the bishop said harshly, "Why have you come back so soon? Didn't I tell you that I needed several days to think about this matter?" The bishop questioned Juan Diego again. He was impressed with Juan's sincere answers, and Juan began to think he had won the bishop over to the lady's wishes. But the interpreter said, "His Excellency says that he cannot do what has been asked of him. Juan Diego should go back to this lady and tell her to give him some sort of sign, a sign to make it clear that she is indeed the Mother of God and is truly asking that a church be built." "Of course, your lordship," Juan Diego answered. "You have only to choose the sign you want, and I'm sure the lady will be happy to provide it for you." There was a great deal of whispering at this point, and finally the bishop told Juan that it was not his place to demand, but that he would be happy with any sort of sign the lady should send. After Juan left, the bishop called two of his most trusted servants and told them to follow Juan Diego and not to let him out of their sight. Juan went through the gate filled with joy. He hurried to tell the lady what had happened. The two servants were Indians and at one time could run as swiftly and easily as Juan Diego, but they had grown accustomed to easy living and could not keep up with him. Juan Diego disappeared completely from sight after he crossed a small bridge over a stream. The two servants looked everywhere. They crawled under the bridge and got muddy. They followed the stream around the hill. They ran back and forth, but Juan Diego seemed to have vanished into thin air. The servants returned to the bishop. "This Juan Diego is a wizard half-tiger with the wings of an eagle," said one of the servants. "He has disappeared." "He must come from the devil," said the other. "We'll take care of him if he comes back," they said angrily. But the bishop was deep in thought and prayer, trying to understand this Indian, Juan Diego, with his strange story of the lady and her message. Juan Diego had no idea he had been followed. He returned to the lady on the hill and told her once more all that had happened. She smiled at Juan Diego and thanked him for being so patient. She told him to return the next morning and she would be waiting. Then she would give the good bishop a sign. Juan hurried home, happy that soon the lady's wishes would be granted. All his neighbors were waiting for him. "Juan, Juan," they cried. "Juan Bernardino, your uncle, is ill. We are afraid he is dying." Juan loved his uncle like a father. Juan Bernardino was his only relative still living, so he rushed to his bedside. His uncle was ill indeed. He moaned and tossed and had a high fever. All night, Juan sat and tried to help. He used ancient remedies that the wise old women of the village told him about. He stroked his uncle's sweating body with a feather and a fresh egg, which was then broken and buried in the ground, as was the custom. Tea made out of herbs and eucalyptus leaves was forced down the old man's throat. The women wound their long scarves around the poor man and pulled, hoping to squeeze out the fever. But it was clear to Juan Diego that none of these remedies could save his uncle. In the light before dawn, Juan ran off toward the church of San Diego to fetch the priest so his uncle could be given the last sacraments. The worry about his uncle caused Juan Diego to completely forget about meeting the lady. It was only as he approached the hill that he remembered. Quickly, he decided he must get the priest first. Then he would keep his promise and go to the lady. Surely she would understand. Juan Diego took the path through a gully at the bottom of the hill. If the lady was waiting, she would not see him. Just as he came around a jagged section of rock, she was still surrounded by the rays of light. But this time she was standing on a crescent moon that was being held up by an angel with colored wings, and she was descending to meet him. Juan Diego fell on the ground and covered his head with his tilma. But the lady's voice was gentle. "Where are you going, my little son?" Juan sobbed. "Do not be angry," he said. He told the lady about his uncle and how he was on his way to fetch the priest. The lady listened, then she spoke again. "Do you believe that I would neglect someone I love so much? Especially when you are doing so much for me. Do not be concerned for your uncle. He will not die of this fever. In fact, he is already cured." Juan Diego believed the lady with his whole heart and asked her for the sign she had promised, so he could quickly go to the bishop. "My dear son," the lady said, "climb up to the top of the hill where we first met. Cut and gather the roses you will find there. Collect them in your tilma and bring them here to me. I will tell you what you have to do and say." Even though Juan knew no roses grew on that hillside, especially in winter. He ran to the top, and there were the most beautiful roses he had ever seen, with dew still on their petals. He cut the best blooms carefully with his knife, filled his tilma with them, and hurried back to where the lady was waiting. The lady took the roses and arranged them carefully in Juan's tilma. Then, tying the tilma around Juan Diego's neck, she told him, "This is the sign that the bishop wants. Go quickly and do not stop along the way. Above all, do not show what you are carrying to anyone except the bishop. When he sees this sign, he will build the church I have asked for."